After 50 hours of smashing through rocks, collecting bananas, and listening to Pauline sing ridiculously catchy tunes about ostriches, Donkey Kong Bananza's credits rolled and I couldn't have been happier. Not because the game was over, but I could finally sit down and write this review. I could share how random this game was and how during its best parts it delivered pure happiness. I could tell you that Donkey Kong Bananza is Donkey Kong's Super Mario Galaxy moment, and it's rather excellent. In a world filled with remasters and remakes that tell the same zombie apocalypse story over and over again, Donkey Kong Bananza is the perfect example of how creative Nintendo can get when it needs to be, how the brand can take something aged and perhaps overlooked and completely reinvent it. Donkey Kong Bananza is most importantly unlike anything I have ever played. On the surface it looks like a Super Mario Odyssey spin-off, and for spoiler's sake I won't explore how deep this game goes down that hole. Literally. One day DK finds himself thrown down a hole as an evil corporation called Void Co. drills through the surface using a giant magma sphere. The group is led by Void and his lappies Grumpy Kong, who is actually ridiculously grumpy, and Poppy Kong, a fabulous diva that is obviously too glamorous to be working in the dirt. This giant magma rock ball thing is also powered by a rare gemstone called Banandium. It also just so happens to look like a banana, which means Donkey Kong gets all hot and bothered about them being stolen. DK then stumbles on a purple rock who ends up being Pauline. We all know Pauline from the Super Mario Odyssey game as the mayor of New Donk City. Of course, she has been around in the Donkey Kong series since the original 1981 arcade game, so the fact that she is his faithful companion in Donkey Kong Bananza does make sense. I don't want to and basically can't tell you much about the story here because Nintendo has locked down a lot of the game's narrative. It makes sense given the context of the project. But DK and Pauline end up being roped into stopping Void Co. from making it to the planet core. Pauline has her own reason for doing so, while DK, he basically just wants bananas and they are stealing them. If anything, I don't think DK cares about anything else during the game, to be honest. He just wants those bananas. Even during most of the dialogue choices throughout the story, Donkey Kong is offered to do the right thing or ask for bananas. He just always asks for bananas. Either way, it doesn't affect the outcome of the story, but it's a funny way to show how obsessed he is about the fruit. Donkey Kong Bananza then spans multiple underground layers of this wonderful world where the game is set. Instead of traveling across the surface like Mario did in Odyssey, DK and Pauline found themselves going deeper and deeper underground. While the game is set beneath the surface, the real magic is in how each layer manages to evolve into a fully fledged world on its own. The sheer creativity behind each location will make all Mario 3D fans smile here. If you're expecting dark and gloomy because you know it is underground and all, you'll be surprised to know that it isn't the case. In fact, the same weird and wonderful variety of Mario 3D worlds are wonderfully fleshed out in Donkey Kong Bananza. Bananza is all about rocks, and believe it or not, the game's rock mechanics drive the majority of the gameplay. Throughout the planet, each layer introduces new types of rocks and materials. Poison, electricity, fire, metal, ice, you name it, there's a rock in Bananza. The game even pushes the envelope further during some layers by creating unique materials that all serve certain mechanics. The light rock, for example, is a rock that emits light. It can then be used to navigate through dark areas. As Donkey Kong Bananza progresses, the intricacies behind this rock gameplay become more and more complex. Some rock types are weak against others, and some can combine together to create something new. For example, an explosive rock when tossed blows a hole through the wall and can even destroy sturdy cement. There are even some enemies made up of certain types of rocks that can only be attacked when the sun is shining on them. Essentially, Donkey Kong Bananza takes these elements and fleshes them out into a grand adventure. Each layer I visited introduced new rock types, gameplay mechanics tied into each new material, and enemies to fight depending on these materials. Of course, all the challenges in the game are also formed around these rocks. All the challenges are honestly just masterfully implemented with rocks. While some layers which act as the stages in a way seem to follow a traditional theme like say volcanoes and frozen tundras, Donkey Kong Bonanza would often throw me a curveball and send me to some of the most unexpected places. One of the best I explored, which I could at least share in this review, was called the Resort Layer. Here DK and Pauline were taking a break from the never-ending hunt of Voidco. The resort layer is a gorgeous beach location with enemies scattered around the area. When you hit these enemies, they would form rock platform trails behind them in the sky. DK would then have to use these enemies as ways to explore the layer and eventually climb up a towering watermelon summit. This watermelon shot way up into the sky, and getting there was both daunting and exhilarating. The layer then ends with, well, I won't spoil it, but DK does love to smash stuff. Speaking of smashing, that is essentially what Donkey Kong Bonanza is all about, smashing everything in sight. DK can bash through almost any rock, and when leveled up, even stronger rocks are destroyed in one punch. This is where Donkey Kong Bonanza becomes incredibly therapeutic. You just smash stuff. Don't like the way that weird rock guy is looking at you? Just smack him. Want to get to the other side of the mountain but don't want to climb up it? Just smash through the middle of it. Best of all, Donkey Kong Bonanza's destruction is unrivaled. What starts out as a chore because DK's weekend doesn't have any Bonanza forms, later becomes one of the best things to do. You basically just spam buttons and break stuff. This isn't only handy for exploration, but it also goes into the material system that relies on either destroying certain rocks or using them to get around. In some layers, new materials would damage DK, but I could break them by pulling a chunk off another material and just hitting it. For example, thorns are a no-no, but DK can pull the ground out below him and just smack his way through the thorn bush. It might sound like a simple thing on the surface, but the late game Donkey Kong Bonanza layers offer some incredible gameplay variety that involves puzzles, knowing your rock types, and making sure you use all of DK's Bonanza forms to complete them. Of course, it is all about getting those bananas, and there are hundreds of them in the game to find. Each later layer is littered with dozens upon dozens of bananas. Some are locked behind puzzles, timed challenges, parkour experience, or just hidden behind a rock. I want to say that in a way, I kind of understood DK's obsession with bananas. After a while, I became sort of hypnotized by the hunt of the banana search. I would find myself staring at the Switch screen without blinking as I smashed through the houses of those innocent zebra people just to get to the wall behind them and dig up a banana. I just had to have it. I was completely obsessed and driven to collect them all. It sort of became a problem as the hours went by, and I laid in bed until 2-3 o'clock in the morning, finding every banana in each layer. But not only bananas, Donkey Kong Bonanza also has a fair amount of collectibles to dig up in the form of fossils. These are also hidden away around corners and inside small hollows inside a mountain. Some are stuck onto tough rocks, and some require smart wits in getting around the layer. Fossils are then used to buy new outfits which are themed around the said layer you're in, similar to how the purple coins in Super Mario Odyssey were used to purchase clothes for Mario. These outfits also have some cool perks unlike the clothes in Super Mario Odyssey. Some reduce damage from a certain rock, while others increase the amount of gold you'll find in the rock. Gold, on the other hand, is another addictive rock type that just pops out of nowhere. I would just smack a wall and gold would come pouring out of it. It makes the joy of destruction even more exciting. I'm sure you have seen the Bonanza transformations already, but in Donkey Kong Bonanza, DK gets the ability to transform into other animals to help him get around. I would say that some of these are a bit more useful than others, but they are all fun to use regardless. My favorite one is a form I can't talk about in this review, so I will just talk about the others. Kong Bananza is a souped up form of DK that favors strength. It is the only form that can smash through a very specific type of rock. Zebra Bonanza is a zebra. DK can charge up a dash and sprint really fast across the area. It's helpful for collapsing ground beneath its feet. It is difficult to control at times, but also very fun to use. Then there's the Ostrich Bonanza, a flying form. Well, not really flying but gliding. It can drop egg bombs from the sky that destroy rocks below. It is very helpful when it comes to reaching far distant platforms. There are some other forms, but I can't mention them in this review. Together, these Bonanza forms truly complete the chaos in Donkey Kong Bonanza. I used them wherever possible to complete whatever challenges I had in the way. These range from combat encounters with enemies in certain arenas to platforming challenges where I had to understand the rocks and know how DK can handle each type by using each form. Altogether, Donkey Kong Bananza is often just the most random game I have played from Nintendo in a long time. On paper, it doesn't make sense why DK can become an ostrich and soar through the air, and the "oh banana" voice that kept coming up every time I smacked a banana also sounded super strange for the first few hundred I collected. However, the more I dived into Donkey Kong Bananza, the more incredible it became. I looked at the game as something entirely unique on its own, rather than asking questions about why it seemed so jumbled together with so many strange elements. Every new layer came with some sense of discovery, and I couldn't wait to see what was in store. I spent so much time smashing rocks and collecting items that I sometimes lost track of time. I finished the game and then went back further to complete other challenges and find all the remaining bananas. One thing is for sure, Donkey Kong Bananza never had a dull moment. As it expands, the game's complex rock system almost feels like an achievement on its own. How Nintendo took the basic thing like the ground beneath DK's feet and gave it purpose. You can pull rocks out of basically anything and use them. Sometimes the game needs you to use them in a certain way, and sometimes I could just use it as a skateboard and scoot around the layer. Sometimes the game won't even give you rocks, but instead push you to use parkour skills and mastering the game's fantastic platforming. I think the biggest achievement in Donkey Kong Bananza is just how refreshing it is. I finished the game after 50 hours, and while reflecting on the experience, found it difficult to compare to anything else I've played. While Super Mario Odyssey delivered some of the best platforming and level design we have seen this decade, Donkey Kong Bananza does the same thing while giving you the ability to completely smash the level apart at the same time. But there's so much to love about Donkey Kong Bananza. Most of my biggest wow moments are much later in the game, and I can't talk about them here. Some layers were pure magical experiences. I dropped into them and thought at first what the hell is going on here, only to end up smiling the entire way through the area. Very few games do this, and even fewer manage to do this without copying some existing formula or game on the market. In the end, Donkey Kong Bananza doesn't play things safe. It is a new direction for Nintendo's ape that feels almost like the impossible was achieved here. Instead of just being another side-scroller platformer, we got this ambitious 3D game that doesn't rely on console mascots to make a statement. It is a bold and powerful message that Nintendo are likely still the masters at these games, and I think we're going to forever talk about the mark that Bananza makes on the industry. So those are my thoughts on Donkey Kong Bananza. Are you looking to pick the game up? Let me know in the comments down below. This review was based on a code that Nintendo sent me for Nintendo Switch 2. Thanks for the review code, guys, I do appreciate it. While you're here, please do consider liking and subscribing for more content like this, and visit glitch.online for more gaming tech news and reviews. Until next time, farewell.